Last week, we found out who the next president of the United States is going to be. Needless to say, a lot of people were upset by the end result and are trying to figure out what is going to happen and how this could have happened. While this is not necessarily a geek topic, unless you geek out about politics, it is a topic I wanted to look deeper into. I'm Ollamh, and welcome to Geek Trivia. So the first thing that one needs to look at as far as the election is the Electoral College. Now, this is a topic that several people have talked about, even before the election. In fact, I saw a really good video done by Philip DeFranco the weekend before the election. Now, I'm going to put a link to his video down below and highly recommend that you watch it. Now, I'm not going to cover the same topic, because honestly, it would be parroting his video. Instead, we're going to look at the results and some suggested possibilities for a different outcome that has been brought up. So first off, the electoral votes versus the popular vote. While Trump solidly won the electoral vote, otherwise known as the race to 270, Clinton won over 50% of the popular vote. This isn't the first or even the second time this has happened. In fact, this is the fifth time it has happened in U.S. history. The first time a president was elected without winning the popular vote was back in 1824. There were, at the time, 4 separate candidates, but none of them secured enough votes from the Electoral College to win the race. Per the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, the House of Representatives made the final decision. And though Andrew Jackson had the most votes and the most electoral votes, John Quincy Adams became the 6th President of the United States. As a side note of interest, Adams was a member of the Whig Party, which went on to become the Republican Party. Jackson and his supporters were not happy and went on to form the modern Democratic Party, and Jackson went on to become the president in the next election. The next time this issue would come up was in 1876, in the presidential race between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden. Tilden won the popular vote by over 254,000 votes. But the Electoral College votes came into 184 for Tilden and 165 for Hayes, and 20 unresolved. The question of who should have won is still, to this day, a controversial discussion. In the end, it was the Compromise of 1877 that awarded all 20 electoral votes to Hayes, in return for the Republicans' agreement to withdraw federal troops from the South, ending Reconstruction. Now, you may be noticing a trend and have a few questions, and we'll look at those at the end of our history lesson. Just 12 years later, the trouble of popular vote versus electoral votes came up again. In 1888, Grover Cleveland was running for a second term against Benjamin Harrison. The country was at peace and the economy was doing well. Cleveland won the popular vote by over 90,000 votes. But Harrison won the Electoral College with 233 electoral votes versus Cleveland's 168. Cleveland's stance that high tariffs were unfair to the consumers and his opposition to the Civil War pensions turned veterans and farmers against the Democrat incumbent and are generally seen as being the key points that lost him the election. Of course, many remember that 16 years ago, in the far-off year of 2000, we saw the issue rear its head again. George W. Bush and Al Gore were both running for the Oval Office. Despite having over 543,000 votes more than Bush, Gore only received 266 electoral votes versus the 271 Bush received. The key ground state of Florida was the deciding factor. The margin in which it was won triggered a mandatory recount. There were many legal battles involved requiring more recounts, and eventually the United States Supreme Court had to make the decision, awarding the election to Republican George W. Bush. Further studies of the issue have reached conflicting opinions on who would have won, but the Supreme Court ruling ended any further recounts. Then we come to this year, with Donald Trump facing off against Hillary Clinton. Clinton, having lost the Democratic nomination in 2008, and despite certain views on her campaign tactics against Bernie Sanders, was officially running for President of the United States. Trump, on the other hand, having no political experience, beat out a whopping 11 opponents to secure the Republican nomination. The results of this race have been spread around far and wide, and are the reason for a lot of extreme reactions and emotions. Trump won, as of this recording, 290 electoral votes, while Clinton wound up with 232. The popular vote, however, shows Clinton winning by over 637,000 votes. Now, some of the similarities that you might have caught on to is that each time the winner has been a Republican. In the case of the first time, a member of the party that eventually became the Republican Party. And the loser was a Democrat, or the person who ran in the next election as the first Democrat. Personally, I'm not sure why the results always end up this way. It might be because the Democrats are able to get more people to vote in their favor, but not spread across enough states to score a win. Maybe their most stalwart supporters tend to congregate together in only a few states, so the electoral vote is often difficult for them. Maybe when these issues come up, it's the swing voters that make the decision, and each time they have just dealt with a Democrat as president and want a change. I'll leave that speculation up to the political specialists to find out. Now, there has been a lot of questions about what can happen to keep Trump out of the Oval Office. At this point, there is only one option, and it's not only unlikely, this would be the first time it happens. But it could also cause for the abandonment of our current electoral system. The electors of each state have to vote for the president, while 29 states and the District of Columbia legally require the elector to vote according to the popular vote of their state. 21 states do not. This has happened before, that some electors have voted contrary to the population of their state, or gone faithless. But never to the point of changing the outcome of the election. In the past, it has been a form of protest, doing it to make a statement without disrupting the system of the election. Now, there is a petition on change.org urging the electors to change their state's vote, thus pushing Clinton into the presidency in place of Trump. Throughout the text of the petition, they repeat very often that she won the popular vote. But as we have seen here today, losing the popular vote doesn't prevent somebody from being elected president. 4 other times this has happened, and the Electoral College votes have been the determining factor. Now, that doesn't mean that if an elector goes faithless, they are free and clear. In some states, they will have to pay a fine. Now, it has been suggested by some that fundraisers be started to pay those fines for these people. That, I can only say, would undermine the system completely. They have to face the consequences of their actions on their own. If they decide to go faithless, that's up to them, but they have to pay the fines. Besides releasing them from the result of their actions, it would open up a legal battle for Trump, saying that they were paid off. In this case, their fines were paid off by the people, in this case, the Democratic Party, and they change their vote for that party. From this point, the end result is most likely a Trump presidency, which to a lot of us is a scary prospect. There have been violent actions from his supporters, protests against him, and a lot of fear going around. This is, however, how our political system works. This is how our democracy works. It isn't dead. It did what it has always done. Just because your candidate didn't win doesn't mean that democracy or the United States has come to an end. This does not, however, in any way make violent defamatory actions acceptable. Nobody should be afraid to go out into the public as themselves because of the system or any candidate in the system. No matter who wins, we are citizens of the United States of America. Everyone in this country has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everyone in this country has the right to practice the religion of their choosing, the right to speak their mind, and the right to peacefully protest. The moment we lose those rights, the moment that we accept that those rights do not apply to everyone, is when the United States has fallen. I would love to know what you have to say. What in this video, if anything, surprised you? How do you feel about the election? I do put one limit on it though. Make it thoughtful and purposeful. I know that emotions are running high on both sides. So if all you can say is something hateful towards the other side, don't leave a comment. We are all part of the same country. And if we don't stand and work together, we may not have a country to call our own for long. As always, thank you guys very much for watching. And stay strong together.
If you wanna see some crazy and also lazy, then you should meet me and my friends. Even though we got no money, for sure.
All right. Ooh, you had some arrows on. Really? What am I sticking on here? All right, nurse. Yep.